All right, it's S&L, and in the next 2 weeks, next 14 days, we're going to have 3 games. We are 2 weeks away from the Texans taking on the Ravens. But before that, they got the Dolphins on Sunday, and then they got the Chiefs the following Saturday, which they open. It's just a 4-point underdog at. We'll get more into that as time goes on. But right now, the focus is on the Miami Dolphins, and the focus is on Texans practice, which begins in a few hours. I'm on the road. Cody's going to be on the scene. We're always on the scene. S&L here. Subscribe on Apple, or if you want it in the audio form, digital form. Obviously, you come to the right place, and also subscribe to the S&L channel. We're pushing 1,500 before our big weekend event. But Cody, let's just get right into it. Practice. You're about to be up there. We're going to be in the mix there. Juice Scruggs watch. That's where we're at right now. Kenyon Green. The week started with the news that Kenyon Green was going to be back. So all eyes are on Juice Scruggs. What's going on here?
Juice Scruggs, if he's out there and he's practicing, then it is figuring out exactly where he's practicing, because this organization felt like Juice Scruggs was a better center than Jarrett Patterson. They felt like Kenyon Green was the best option at left guard until he ultimately got benched for Jarrett Patterson. They had the opportunity to make it Patterson at left guard, Scruggs at center. They decided to flip it. Now, coming out of the bye week, would they flip it again? And again, I put the caveat out there: if Juice Scruggs is on the field, read between the lines. If he's not on the field, then the left guard spot is totally up for grabs. It could be Kendrick Green, it could be Nick Broker, or it could simply be Kenyon Green ready to go after the bye week, after his injury is all healed up, and he'd get activated this weekend, and the Texans would be able to play him at left guard with Jarrett Patterson at center. And we get to see if that combination can hold up from a pass rush standpoint, and if that combination would add to the run blocking. Now, when Kenyon Green has had any semblance of success in 2024, it's been with his run blocking. It hasn't been with his pass blocking, but even the run blocking dipped at the end of his time initially as the starter for this team. So that's kind of where I'm looking on the offensive line, because I would feel like most everybody coming back is pretty settled, with the exception of Kenyon Green's return and the fact that the Texans clearly favored him to some level, to the point where they kept him out there after repeated poor performances. And then even when he got benched, he got his job back right away when Patterson couldn't play after those 10 snaps at left guard, and he only lost his job due to injury. So I'm focused and dialed in on who's there on the offensive line, and if they're not there, who's the left guard if they show the offensive line in practice.
I do think it's interesting you bring that up because it's weird that Nick Caserio said he thinks Juice is a better center, but they played him at guard for Patterson. Like we've seen Juice at center and Jared Patterson at guard for one drive this year, and they scored. They literally scored the touchdown. And then unfortunately on the final play, the one of the better runs of the year for Joe Mixon, Jared Patterson went down with the concussion. But we've seen that combination, and it seems like we're not even like entertaining it because for whatever reason, maybe they just think Jared Patterson's a really crappy guard, which could be the case. But we've seen that for one drive, and the one drive that had happened, it scored. So when we talk about all these combinations and we talk about, do they put Juice in? Do they put Kenyon in? Is there going to be some sort of mix? Is Juice going to be out there? Are they going to keep it as is? It is interesting that that combination doesn't even seem to get entertained when they've already come out and said that they think that Juice is a better center than guard.
And
And
it's
I just don't
it's
see it. I just don't see it either. I don't pretend to follow it as close to them. I just don't really see that.
Well, I mean, Pro Football Focus is not the gospel, but it's a good starting point, especially with offensive line play. And he's had some rough pass blocking moments at both center and guard, and he's had some rough run blocking moments at guard since he's been there. But his run blocking is better than Jarrett Patterson's run blocking, according to Pro Football Focus. So I feel like that's the reason that Patterson is not at left guard, is because that feels like a position. And we've shown the graphs and the charts to people before. They like to go left. and they must feel like the run blocking from Scruggs when they run the ball left is better than the run blocking from Patterson. It would make sense that they didn't make that switch in the middle of the game when they benched Kenyon Green and then put Jarrett Patterson in. So I understand that in the middle of the game, not making the move to Patterson to center and then bumping Scruggs over. But since they had the opportunity, Patterson pass blocks much better than Scruggs did over the course of the season at the center position. And then Scruggs run blocks at left guard. And that may just be where they're most comfortable. Now, if their focus is that left guard spot having the best run blocker, then Kenyon Green has had the best left guard run blocking performance this season. But that was months ago. We don't know if that's the player that's going to step on the field against the Miami Dolphins if he's activated and ready to go. So they have a little bit of moving and piecing it together that they need to do if everyone's healthy. And if everyone's not healthy, I feel like they'll just start Kenyon Green at left guard and Jarrett Patterson at center. And people will be questioning why Kenyon Green is back on the field, and he'll have to prove that those questions were not well asked or well intentioned questions. He'll have to go out there and prove it, which confidence level pretty low.
Yeah, and I think the Kenyon Green, like the conversation elevates today at 4 o'clock. Like today at 4, we'll get a better grasp of what the picture looks like. If Juice is out there moving around, then you have Kenyon Green as like another piece. I'll get to how that makes me feel when we get into the optimistic point of view with the returns and the fears with the returns. But you heard me put an S at the end of return because the guy that people have wanted to see return for the longest, he's also going to be out there. So Christian Harris watch is going to be interesting as well. For me, and I know you're going to be on the scene today. I'll be back on the scene next week, and I'll be at NRG on Sunday. I just want to see him move, man. Like I just want to see him move and see what that looks like. Like I almost want to see, like, is he a full participant in stretching and individual drills? Is he out there? Are they holding him up this much? Because if you were at training camp and we were at every single training camp practice, you didn't see it. And when you thought you were going to see it, you saw it for like 9 minutes, and then all of a sudden he was gone. So I just want to see. I've seen him carrying around cleats, and I've seen him going to the practice field, but I just got to see. I got to see Christian Harris move and just see what exactly it looks like before I even start to like assign some sort of role for him.
I believe it's going to be 3 months to the day since the last time he was on the practice field for a practice, not a workout over on the side or
We
some
talking
sort
about
of
practice?
cardio or physical activity. I'm talking about putting the pads on. They call plays, they run plays, all that kind of stuff. Like 3 months to the day almost. And look, he was a really, really good football player at the end of last season. And he was a guy that we felt like they were going to lean on defensively. They haven't had him there. And they've had guys step up, and Henry Toto has turned into a solid player. Neville Hewitt, when he's been forced into action, has been solid. Devin White, they added him in the middle of the year. He's been solid. And if you could get him back, maybe it's not Miami, maybe it's the Kansas City, Baltimore double dip in the handful of days. If you get him back, like that's a player that's got a lot of talent, a lot of athleticism. Hasn't played a tremendous amount of football, but he's played enough to know what DeMeco Ryans would want out of the defense, and he's played in some high pressure moments for this Texans team. Obviously, the playoff performance that he had last year, we remember when he stepped in front of that Flacco pass and took it back the other way. So I'm excited to watch him out there, but it's got to be, not only does it have to be go out there and run around, go out there, run around on Wednesday, and then do it again on Thursday, and then do it again on Friday, and then do it again the following week on Wednesday. Like there has to be a stacking of days for Christian Harris before you even really kind of start entertaining, okay, he's going to be back on the football field.
It's funny because these two returns that we're talking about, it is S&L. Be sure to subscribe to the S&L channel, and also be sure to subscribe on all podcast platforms. It's a good time to be alive. Be covering this squad, two best guys on the digital beat, the daily collaboration, because we do it multiple times. But it's interesting when we talk about these two returns because you have a situation where one guy is proven that he can produce at a high level at certain points on the field. Um, and his position group is going to be missing their best guy for the next 3 weeks. And there seems to be a little bit more patience, anyways, because it's just kind of like, yeah, I'll just be happy to see him kind of step on the field. So I don't think the urgency has really increased with Christian Harris coming back, where you're like, oh, he's got to hurry back because Aziz is out. There's like a little bit more patience, and there seems to be like a little more stability and like a process. But the Kenyon Green thing is interesting because the offensive line's been awful, but he's been kind of the face of the awful. Like he's been one of the worst faces. So this is more like a American Pie Stifler. Hey Sherman, what the are you doing here? Type of thing with Kenyon Green. Like you didn't know that he was coming back. So that's what's weird about this. Like what is going on here? Is he like what is Kenyon Green coming back here? Like it almost feels like that has more like an emergency-ish feel than Christian Harris being back on the practice field with Aziz out.
I also love the connection between these two, that Kenyon Green's the biggest disappointment from the 2022 draft, and Christian Harris is the biggest surprise from the 2022 draft. I mean, Christian Harris turned into a linebacker that they were prepared to start from day one at the beginning of the season prior to his injury, and Kenyon Green has been the biggest disappointment from that draft class.
Yeah, that was a
For
plug and play pick. If you're going to draft a guard there,
Yeah.
it's plug and play. No
Well,
questions.
well, and it's made worse by the fact that basically every other offensive lineman that you should have considered is a solid player.
Linderbaum.
Zion Johnson is a guard for the Chargers, and he's solid. He's been better than Kenyon Green. I'm not going to sit here and tell you like he's awesome. And then Tyler Linderbaum as a rookie was a Pro Bowl snub in most people's
But we
eyes.
knew that. We knew.
Like
I mean, that was like that was the safe pick. But I'll be honest. Like when you drafted Kenyon Green, I thought, okay, well it's a guard, but I
the
mean, it still
floor,
might be a little early. But yeah,
the floor was supposed to be high for Kenyon Green, even if the ceiling had a limit to it. The floor was supposed to be high, but the floor has been it's fallen out from under him a couple of times this season. I mean, we were
no,
talking
it's
about
it's 6th round pick. Like it's like
yeah.
he's performing like a 6th round pick.
I mean,
Basically.
it's worth noting at one point this season, okay, at one point this season, they benched him for a 6th round center in Jarrett
Exactly.
Patterson. Like that's what happened to a former 1st round pick. He got benched for a 2nd-year 6th round center at his position. Like that's what happened earlier this year, and he may be healthy and just get his job back. Like that's kind of ludicrous. And I'm not talking about the
It sounds
rapper.
crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
it seems really, really crazy. So optimistic Harris Green POV, and we're gonna be realistic here. For me, the optimistic point of view is Kenyon Green comes back as like a reserve guard. Uh, you don't really see him on the field, and Christian Harris comes back and kind of works his way in. And by the time the playoffs come around, you have a linebacking room of Aziz, Angry Aziz, uh, Christian Harris, To'o, Devin White, Neville Hewitt, and Mbop Hansen on special teams. So to me, that is great.
It's a
If you can get
group.
that, that's strong, especially if you can get Christian Harris there. And it's realistic. Like if he's going to play and he's in the mix, like that's a great linebacker. I won't say great, but it's a really, really good linebacker rotation. Especially given the fact that I think everyone there is kind of overachieved or played to their full potential. I don't want to say overachieved, but played to their full potential and surpassed expectations that you've seen from them when they've been on the field. That's my optimistic POV. The Kenyon Green thing, I can't sit here and lie to people and act like anyone should feel comfortable if you see him trot out onto the field and line up to the front and left of CJ Stroud. I can't say that anyone should feel comfortable with that. And hopefully, and if the Texans do, then that's kind of wild too, unless
I
it's
mean,
just some emergency situation.
I feel like you laid out the most optimistic Christian Harris version. Like they're going to ramp him up even after he's cleared to be playing on Sundays, which they have 2 Sundays left, and then it's actually a Saturday. And you get what I'm saying. He's not playing a full complement of snaps right when he gets back, but if you could have him close to full 4 or 5 playoff time, then sign me all the way up for that one. I suppose my optimistic outlook for Kenyon Green, I suppose it would be he has to play because of injuries, and he doesn't mess up more than a handful of times. Like
A game?
that's that for a game. Like that would be my optimistic. Like I don't like there's not a lot of reasons for optimism. And again, I know we brought up Pro Football Focus a moment ago. It's not the gospel, but it's a good starting point. His pass blocking number in the game when he got hurt against the Jets was 9. I didn't even know that it went into single digits.
He got hurt falling on the quarterback.
Like it was 9, and that was coming off of 29 and 21.9. And
Oh, that was coming off a game where a lot of people said, "Man, this guy needs to be benched."
Yeah.
Yeah,
And is a game where he did get benched. The guy that replaced him got hurt, and then he got to go right back in, and then he was the starter right away, basically unquestioned. And who knows? I mean, I can't ever expect Kendrick Green to be in there unless they have
Part
to
of
put him in
me,
there.
part of me wonders though, and it is S&L, and we'll get to the fears in a second. And I also have a question for Cody, that I want to hear the answer to before practice in a couple of hours. So, what do you think happens? Like, let's say that Jared Patterson never gets a concussion, and let's say he plays the rest of that game at guard, and the offense performs at a good level because again they scored on the only drive he was in there. Like, is that the offensive line right now? Like, do they keep Scruggs at center and they keep Patterson at guard? Like, what? Because I'm not going to try to figure out their line of thinking when it comes to the offensive line. Because quite frankly, I think I don't trust anything that they do say about the offensive line. I don't think anyone really should at this point. I don't think they deserve that benefit of the doubt. But like, let's say that Patterson never gets a concussion. What like what happens? Like,
I
do they
think
just keep it rolling that way?
I think they probably ahead of the Jets game, if Patterson never gets his concussion,
They flip them?
I think they flip him ahead of it. Well, no, because that would have been a short week, so they would have kept him. They probably would have kept Pat because there's no practice that week. They only did walkthroughs, so probably would have kept Patterson at left guard and Juice Scruggs at center for the Jets game, and then they probably would have flipped them for Detroit, thinking that was their best lineup and their best version, unless it worked
What?
for the.
So why not just do it right away?
Why not do it in game? You mean like why not?
Yeah, like I mean, if like it's not like Scruggs hasn't played guard and it's not like Patterson hasn't played center.
My
Like if that's clearly your best, then why did they do it then? Why did they not just move Scruggs over and have Patterson be center? They
my
didn't want
my
to change centers in the middle of a game.
my guess would be that Scruggs had no practice at left guard and didn't know what he needed to be doing maybe at left guard, and maybe
He
Patterson
didn't know what he needed to be doing. The center's supposed to know what everybody's doing.
uh,
That's like that's
but
the job of the center.
the reason D'Amico Ryans gave for not putting Kendrick Green in at left guard after Patterson got hurt was Kenyon Green had more snaps at practice that week. So it's
Okay.
like I'm just wondering if Scruggs has not had any at that point in the year, because remember, Scruggs started the season unquestioned all the way back in the middle of July,
Right.
unquestioned. He was
Yeah.
the starting center. So I wonder if they
Right.
just wanted to get him some practice snaps at left guard before they moved him to left guard. I'm not saying that's a
Yeah.
good idea. I'm not
No,
saying that
no,
that's
and
a valid reason.
I'm
I'm
not
just
trying to
trying.
put you against the corner. The thing
I'm
is that
trying to get
I'm trying to
inside
make
their
sense of
mind.
it.
I'm
Yeah,
trying to
we're
get
trying to
inside
make sense of it.
it's a scary place to be, inside the mind of Chris Strausser and Bobby Slowik and maybe even D'Amico Ryans when it comes to who, where, why, and how on this offensive line. It's scary.
Yeah, it's terrifying, and that's what's so confusing to me is, I mean, the center should know what everyone's doing, and he's played this before, and Jared's played that, and it's an emergency situation. It's not ideal, but that's what's confusing to me. But I just like if what if they just score? What if they score on 3 straight drives instead of that first drive? we're changing it back then. Like if
Well,
if you're that married to it, and it goes back to the Caserio thing where we're just sitting there like, okay, I guess he's a better center. I don't know. Like I didn't, I felt like it was equally blah. Like what we saw and what we didn't saw. Like I thought it was equally blah. I didn't like he made it he made it sound uh he made the way that Caserio said that Juice is a better guard. It was almost like, yeah, and Tom Brady's a better pocket passer than dual threat quarterback, and and you just like it just glazed over. But I don't know. The evaluation of the offensive line, the investment in the offensive line, the performance of the offensive line, the justification of the performance of the offensive line, the rotate. Like there's not again, we're trying to make sense of the
it
senseless.
will it will drive you nuts trying to figure it out.
Yeah,
It will
it
drive you
sucks.
nuts.
So let's go to the fears. Like, what are the fears with Harris and Green? I think the fear for me would be that Christian Harris never really gets ramped up and never really ready to go. Because I think just his presence is, for me, that's good. Like if he just gets in the rotation, that's good. I don't think there's a scenario where he goes out there and he just plays really poorly. Even if there are some raw, moments and there's like some rust. I'm not worried about him. Just Kenyon Green playing scares me. Like that just it scares me. Like, and it's a terrifying thing that this is all of a sudden like a normal thought at this point, to where whether it's immediately stepping on the field, whether it's being a snap away, like just the thought of Kenyon Green blocking for CJ Stroud again, based on what we saw. Um, it's a scary thought for me. It's tough, and I like again. I feel like I always have to say this, but I like the guy's makeup. I like his professionalism. I don't like the way he played earlier this year, and they obviously didn't either. So just him going out there is that has to give someone a healthy amount of fear if they've been paying attention.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt, no doubt. And I would say from the fear standpoint, the fear is that Kenyon Green is automatically inserted back in there and continues to have the long runway before somebody else gets the opportunity to replace him, which is what happened this season. I mean, it's not like Indianapolis when he was getting CJ Stroud killed was the first time we all looked at each other and was like, "Well, should they bench Kenyon Green?" Like after week 4, it was like, should they do something else at left guard?" Like so he got a very long runway before they actually made a decision. And even within the game, Stroud took some massive hits before they made the decision. So my worry would be that not only he gets back in there unquestioned, but he gets back in there with the same amount of runway that he did, and it takes a long time for them to eventually get him back out of there. My fear for Harris is along the lines of what you said is, maybe he's not ever ready for a full complement of snaps in 2024. I do feel like the fact that they played Devin
What do you
White.
mean a full complement of snaps? Are you talking about like getting him up in the 90s or something? Like I'm
No,
just
no,
looking at him as getting like, what do you mean by that?
no. I mean, like he just never starts. Like they just only
Oh,
use him as a rotational player. But it's worth
that's
noting
the full complement. You're saying him getting in the rotation.
the full complement would be he's on the field in 2 linebacker sets. Like
Okay.
like but they played Devin White like over 50% of the snaps the first week he was there. He was there for 3 days, didn't know the defense, and had come off the couch. So it's like they're willing to play some guys, and sort of maximize what they can do if they trust their athleticism. And if you trust Devin White's athleticism, I would think that you'd, maybe to a slightly lesser degree, you trust Christian Harris's athleticism as well, and you can put him out there. But yeah, I am worried that he's not going to ever get close to 2 linebacker set guy or, preferred option in 3 linebacker set for a variety of reasons. He's got to catch up. He's got to see action. D'Amico said it this week. The best way to get back into football is to play football.
Play
Okay,
football.
well, you don't play football
Yeah.
on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So he's going to have to play at some point in the games, but they've got to be able to trust him when they put him on the field. My fear level is so much lower for Christian Harris because when he gets on the field, I'm not worried about him screwing it up. I'm not worried
Nah.
about I'm not worried about Like Christian Harris being bad at his job isn't going to injure Will Anderson. Kenyon
The
Green
thing
being bad at his job could injure CJ Stroud.
the thing about Christian Harris, and I'm not even like anticipating him being able to get up to like 80-90% of the snaps. I think like it's kind of scary with given the fact that you have a when Aziz is back, you have a solid linebacking group to be able to use him situationally, like 45-50% of the time, because I think he's just so freakishly athletic and his instincts are so nice to where if the situation is clear where he goes out there and it's not like there's not like a maybe getting caught off guard with first down, second down, play action or something like that. Like if it's like a clear passing down or it's a clear running down, I think Christian Harris is equipped to do pretty much any damn thing on a football field. Now you did say something that I will take exception to. Um, you said that Devin White, they called him and they got him off the couch. His country ass is like a rocking chair, dude. Man, my man's probably just like sitting there on a rocking chair. You know, damn well he's sitting there on the rocking chair, country Devin White right there, just
on the
hanging out.
on the porch, watching the horses, watching the farmland. He's a big horse guy. So
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
he loves
you're right.
horses.
You're right.
Yeah, he's sitting out there. He's got nice little he's got the jar of sweet tea, man. He's got the jar
Yeah,
of like
got the
sweet tea and like
big
some
mason jar.
lemonade.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, for
Yep.
sure. So I have a question for you before we get ready to cover this practice. Um, WDBD, WDBD during the bye week.
WDBD. WDBD. What did Bobby do?
Yes. What did Bobby do? Did Bobby have like a coming to Jesus meeting? Did Bobby just get away and relax? Did Bobby like take a close evaluation of this offense? Was there like a huge ass meeting? What did Bobby do during the bye week?
I feel like he definitely needed like 2 days. I'm not thinking about it. I'm not doing it. I'm not talking about it. Like whatever Bobby Slowik enjoys that's not football, he went and did that for like 2 days.
Okay.
And then it was a little bit of, okay, let's, you know what? Let's just take a little peek around the league at some of this stuff that's working. Can my guys do that? And so then it's, maybe a little bit in the notebook, maybe it's a little bit at the whiteboard at the house. And I would think by, towards the end of the week, he's like, you know what? Let's just go to the office and start, really diving in on this and putting pen to paper and marker to whiteboard and see if we can come up with something. And then when everybody came in Monday morning, he had like notes taped on the wall and he had like stuff drawn on the whiteboard and he had like the strings connecting to, other ideas. And he's like, this is the offense. Like, that's what I hope happened.
Okay. That's a lot. What's working and how can my guys do it? Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
I am
Not just how, but can my guys do it?
we're back in the Bobby business. My goodness. We're back in the practice business as well. Again, 3 games in 2 weeks from today. 2 weeks from now, the Texans will be taking on the Ravens, and Beyonce will be on the stage at halftime. And if they have the division wrapped up, maybe they're icing up. Who the hell knows? Regardless of what happens, though, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together.
Eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans, at 4:00 today. See you then.